Hi everyone, this is Stephanie with EVV Services. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about electronic visit verification for independent providers in Nebraska. We do have a questions section on the GoToWebinar. So if you do have any questions for the TheraP team or for Katie Widener from Nebraska, she's here to assist with any questions as well. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm going to give you a brief introduction and talk a little bit about electronic visit verification in TheraP. I'm also going to give you a demonstration, and then we will have time for questions at the end. Feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar using that question section on the GoToWebinar app. Those will pop up and I can answer those as we're working together. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie for just a moment to talk through the services for independent providers.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. This is Katie Widener. I am the Developmental Disabilities Provider Relations Manager. And I'm going to just cover a little bit about what options you have for EVV and what services fall under the EVV rules. So if you are an independent provider and you are providing independent living, supported family living, respite in home, or homemaker service, so any of those four services, then that qualifies for the use of EVV. And if you're providing one of those services, you must begin using EVV as of January 1st, 2021, otherwise you cannot be paid. So TheraP has an EVV module that is being given to all of the Nebraska providers free of charge. And that EVV module is how you will do your check-in and check-out for the EVV services. The rest of the services that you may provide that are not EVV services will still be checked in and checked out through the attendance module, just as you are currently. With the TheraP EVV module, it will work with the TELUS website in order to help you to be paid, and you will have to do some claims submission in TELUS. If you want to choose to not use the EVV services through TheraP and want to use a different company, please notify Developmental Disabilities pretty much immediately at dhhs.ddproviderrelations@nebraska.gov, which is on the slide here, so that we can fix that, get that process going, because it does take a little bit of work to switch you to a different EVV organization. But as your default, you will be using TheraP EVV unless you tell us differently.
Great, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
So as we talked about last month, the go live date for Nebraska independent providers is January 1st of 2021. It's right around the corner. And we have trainings that are going to start in December. We are providing a webinar-based training for you to join us, and you can sign up for as many of those as you feel are necessary. We'll have those offered at different times of the day, so if you have different schedules, we're trying to accommodate that. We also have some training materials, videos, and user guides that you can review to make sure you feel comfortable going forward. I'm going to show you today what your workflow will look like, so please feel free to ask any questions as we go through this workflow. We are working in several states on their electronic visit verification, and everybody's trying to go live by January 1st, so you're not alone. This is a national mandate. And I've been working on this module since 2018. I'm excited to be working with everybody in Nebraska to get you up and running, along with my colleague Tracy Linko, who you may be familiar with. She's been working with independent providers in Nebraska since that contract started, as well as Calvin Christensen, who is providing some support for us. If you attend some of those webinar trainings with us, you may also meet Katie Woodburn, Rich Frediloso, Jody Trena, Nick Anderson, Leah Sewell, or Sarah Christensen. You see we have a large team available to assist to make sure Nebraska providers are ready to go live January 1st. So here is the workflow that we're looking at for a typical day in the life of an independent provider. You have the option to schedule things in advance if you would like to do that. That's also going to be important for you if you're going to be working in an area that does not have connectivity. So if you know you're going to be working in a remote area with no internet, no cell service, you want to make sure you have that scheduled ahead of time so you can use one of those offline check-in options. The other option is that you can just check in when you arrive. You don't have to plan it in advance. If you're going to have that internet connection and that smart device that you can use, you would just check in and out for that service. Now, when you get ready to complete your billing, you want to do a review prior to that to make sure that your visit data is correct, because that is the time that you're billing for that service. There is the ability for you to edit that data. So if you forget to check out, you do have the ability to go in and make an edit there. And then there is a step of submitting that EVV data to TELUS, where your claims are going to be created. So you will be completing the claim process in TELUS, even if you're using TheraP. So you need to make sure you attend one of those TELUS trainings so that you understand how the claiming process works outside of TheraP in TELUS. All right. You can review schedules and schedule in advance or edit schedules from your computer. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is that self-scheduling option you're going to have, the ability to go in and plan your schedules ahead of time. Again, if you're using the offline application, you would want to create those in advance. But our primary method of data collection would be the mobile app. So whether you have a tablet or a smartphone, you could install the TheraP mobile application for free and log in with your regular TheraP information. This is going to be the most user-friendly, most efficient, and most accurate. So this is our recommended method to try in your EVV services. There are places to leave comments there, so if you do run into an issue where you had a problem with checking in or out, or you forgot to do that, you could leave a comment for yourself so you know what that time should be when you make those corrections. When you go back and review your time, we have a color-coded schedule, so you'll be able to see anything that's orange is incomplete. That's maybe where you forgot to check out, so you would need to go in and make those changes. Anything that's green means you checked in and out, so that's a completed visit. Anything that's blue was scheduled in advance and never checked in for. Like I mentioned, you will have that ability to edit, so you could come in and manually enter that out time if you forgot to check out. Anytime you do that, it is a manual edit to that EVV data, which is supposed to be captured in real time. So if you are making a change, you will have to choose an exception description. This is a reason or justification for that change. You have access to also review this data in a report form if you find that to be an easier way to look at your information. And on the mobile application, there is an offline app that's built into that. So if you are scheduled in advance and you're going into an area without service, you could use the offline mobile app to complete your EVV data. You would have to add that in advance, so it's there waiting for you. And then once you get back onto an internet connection, you would be prompted to upload that EVV data. So with the offline app, you would be required to do some pre-planning to create those schedules in advance. And once you're back onto an internet connection and log back in, you would get that prompt to upload that data. All right, so another option, yeah, sorry, my computer is catching up to me. All right, so this other option is the fixed verification device. This is a device that would be stored physically secured in the location where the service is being provided. So the state of Nebraska is working through their process for how this will be requested. Katie, do you want to speak a little bit about how you see that process working for independent providers who want to use a fixed verification device?
Absolutely. So likely what will occur is there will be an application process for the fixed device that you will have to fill out, and the state staff will review those applications and either accept those or approve those or deny those. And then if approved, the fixed device will be given to the services coordinator that you are working with so that they may install it in the participant's home. So it's really important that if you're requesting a fixed device that you know who the service coordinator is that you're working with, and that you provide that information to us. If you're working with more than one service coordinator and are applying for a fixed device from more than one person, we also need to have that information in the application. The application is not in final approval yet, but once it is, we will be putting that information out.
Great, thank you so much. So just to recap what Katie mentioned, again, the primary method of data collection should be the mobile app. There are, of course, situations when that is not available. So the state is going to review those situations. So you'll request using an application that the state will make available to you very soon. And then the service coordinator is actually going to have to set up the device and configure the device to make sure that it's in the home and set up for that location. This device is meant to be physically secured and kept at one location. It should not be carried around with anyone. It is a fixed device, meaning that it does not move. So it's going to be configured and set up for that one place. So if you are serving multiple individuals, and need fixed visit verification devices, you would get a device for each location. Each person would have their own at the location. So even though this means you don't have to have the technology with you when you're at the visit, what you're going to get, and you can see on the screen, you're going to push this button and it's going to generate an 8-digit code for you. That code is your check-in information. So you need to photograph that or document that somewhere, because you're going to use that code to enter that data once you get back to a computer or back to an internet connection. So even if you're thinking you're going to get this fixed device because you don't have a smartphone, you will still have to get back to a computer or smartphone of some sort to be able to enter this check-in data. You can do this at a later date. As you can see, it is a time-based password. It's going to have a date, timestamp, and location associated with that number. So when you go back, even if it's days later, the next week that you enter it in, it's going to have that correct date and time from when you got that code. So you would push that button when you arrive, get your code, document that, or save it somehow on your phone or written down for you to remember later. And then when you get ready to leave from providing that service, you would push that button again and get a different code that would be your checkout code. So like I said, there's some setup that's required that the service coordinator is going to have to do before they can install that device for you. There is this piece of getting your data from TheraP to TELUS. This is something that we are still working with TELUS on, so I don't have it available for you to see in a demo account yet, but I hope to very soon. What you would see when you're back on your web browser on your computer, on your billing tab, you would have a TELUS section. And you would want to make sure that all of those check-in and check-out times are correct before you submit that data to TELUS, because whatever you submit to TELUS, that is what's going to be used to create your claim. So you would have a billing on your billing tab, TELUS EVV Submit, and from here you can select all of the visits that you would want to send. You could use your filter to narrow that down if you wanted to, and then we would just click that Submit EVV button. Now, if there's an error or some issue that comes back from TELUS, you will get that in TheraP and you can make that correction and resubmit. You'll be able to search all of those visits that you've submitted to see if there were any issues. All right, I've only seen one question come in so far, and it was about that fixed visit verification device. So hopefully you feel a little bit better knowing that the state is finalizing that process. They're going to create an application that you will have access to soon. They'll share that out, and you'll be completing that application and following those instructions from the state. All right, I'm going to switch to my mobile device. I believe the majority of people are probably going to be using the, let me get logged in first and then I'll share it. Probably going to be using the self check-in. So that's what I'm going to show you first. This would be on my mobile device. So whether that is a tablet or a smartphone, you can use an Android device or an Apple device. You're downloading that application. If you're on Android, it'll be in the Play Store. If you are on an Apple device, it'll be in the Apple App Store. And once you install it, you're going to use your regular TheraP login credentials. So what I'm seeing here is a list of modules, and what we're worried about right now or focusing on right now is EVV. So I'm going to touch this middle section, scheduling EVV, and this is taking me to my schedule. So it shows today's date. It is always going to start with today's date, but I do have an arrow on either side, this blue arrow, so I can go forward and see if there are things coming up, or I can go back and see previous check-in and check-out data. I'm going to touch that Today button at the top right to get back to today's date. So what you're seeing here are visits that I've already completed today. So they have a green line next to them. Green means that I have checked in and out, so that is a completed schedule. I'm going to use the self check-in button at the very bottom. So this is what you would use when you arrive to provide a service. So I am arriving now. I'm going to do a self check-in, and you'll notice that my start date and time is in gray. That comes directly from my check-in, so I cannot change that. Now I need to define which person I'm supporting. So this is showing me the individuals that I have access to. I'm going to touch on the individual that I'm supporting. I need to choose which program I'm serving them under. And then lastly, which service. So you should see the service description, the service code, and if you look in the brackets, it shows day units and week units. That's giving you a comparison of how many units that person is already scheduled for the day and the week. So you can kind of keep an eye on how many units you've already provided that person this service today or so far this week. It already has my name listed as the staff. and it has defaulted to billable. We want that to stay billable. Yes, it defaults that way, so we're just going to leave it that way. That determines whether or not you're going to be able to bill for this visit, so we want that to say yes. All right, up at the top right, I'm going to click Next, and it's asking me, is this a mobile check-in or a fixed visit verification? So if you're using that fob, that device for checking in and out, this is when you would pick FVV. I'm just going to do mobile right now. So this is finding my location from my device. Once you use this the first time, if you do not have location services enabled on your device, it will prompt you to, because you won't be able to check in unless you're giving a location. I cannot change my location. I could zoom out and see where I am, but it's not going to let me change that point. It's coming from my device. Now up here at the top where it says location, I do have a drop down with other nearby addresses. GPS is not always 100% accurate. So even sometimes I check in and out from the exact same seat in my office and it'll give me a different house number. So it's more about a proximity range than the exact physical house number and address. If you have concerns about what's displaying there, you could use your comment section to indicate that. And then I'm going to click the check mark up at the top right when I'm done. So my check-in has been successful. Now I talked through that, so I made it take a little bit longer, but this could be a really quick process of you choosing the person, the program, the service, and then checking in. So once I've completed that check-in, you'll notice that I have that orange line. That is an indication to me that this is incomplete. So I've started it, but I have not finished it. So when I was ready to check out, I would want to either swipe to check out, or I could touch to open this up and check out. Either way, if this is a visit that I'm going to have to check out for without connection, without internet connection or cell service, I could also just swipe the other direction to the right and add it to the offline app. So nothing looks like it's changed here, but it told me down here at the bottom that I added it to the offline app. So it's just going to be there waiting for me, so that when I am without connection, I could check in on it offline. All right, so I'm going to go back to this screen. I am going to switch to talk about the offline app since we're still on the mobile app. So for the offline visits, for you to be able to use that feature, you do have to configure your offline EVV. And what that is asking for is a password. You need to create a new password. It needs to be at least 6 digits. And this is going to be your password for logging in to the offline version of the app. If you forget what your password is, you can always log in and change it. So it's something that you can reset on your own. All right. So now that I've got my PIN set up, I'm going to log out. This is that main login screen for the mobile application. And if you look below the orange login button, there is a link to switch to the offline login. So this is what I would use when I don't have connectivity. I can still use my mobile device. I'm just going to use it in the offline mode. So remember, we had to plan ahead and add that schedule. And here it is, this 322 for the 12th. So it shows no PHI, no protected health information. So No individual's name is showing up, no address, no service. This is offline data, so we want to make sure that it is not sharing anything that is confidential. So I'm just going to touch here on my shift for today, and it's asking me if I want to check in or out. So I know this is my checkout. And then I'll confirm that. And then you can see next to checkout, it has my date and time. So now when I get back to internet, however long that takes me, I'm going to log back in to my regular TheraApp access. And I'm getting this prompt that I have offline EVV slots that have not been uploaded yet. Please upload these slots first. So I'm going to go ahead and upload, and it's just going to work in the background. It's telling me it's uploading. It may take up to 30 minutes for that to show up. So we're just going to let it work in the background. Once that does update, this 322 shift will show as a completed shift with a green line because we did that checkout offline. All right, I'm going to switch back to my computer. And let me get logged into this demo account. Did look like we had a follow-up question about the fixed device. Will the state send us an email when we can apply for the fixed device?
I can answer that question. If you want an email specifically sent to you about the fixed device, please send an email to dhhs.ddproviderrelations@nebraska.gov, and we'll put you on the list so that when the fixed device process is complete, that you'll get directly notified. Otherwise, we will be notifying everyone through our email blast that it's available.
Thank you, Katie. And I put that email address here up on the screen just so that you all could make sure you have that, and I'll have it again up at the end. Okay, so we've completed some check-ins. What I'm going to go show you now is how to review that time and how to even schedule yourself in advance. We had a question about downloading the app. So we are going to enable this for you in your accounts right before we start training. So I believe our first training is December 7th. So it'll probably be early December when you will have access to that, because we want you to have access once you're ready to start that training process. So if you go ahead and download the app, when you log in, if it has not been enabled for you, just know that that is coming. And I will switch back to my phone in a minute and show you how you can locate that app on your smartphone. But good questions, keep those coming. Appreciate your participation. All right, so we're taking a look at how to review your time. You've done your check-in and check-out. Maybe it's the end of the month, the end of the week, and you're wanting to look back at your time. So you would access this from your individual tab, and you will see, if you probably don't have this yet, but you will have this in December when we turn that on. You will have a scheduling section, create/edit. So I'm going to choose the program. You'll most likely just have one program in there. And then once you select your program, you'll see the individuals you support. So I can choose which people I want to work on, or I could select them all. And I'll click skip. If you're having trouble seeing my screen, make sure you have your GoToWebinar open. And I zoomed in a little bit in case it was too small. So what I'm looking at right now is the scheduling grid, and this is going to display anything that has already been created, and I could also create things from here if I wanted to. I've got today's date and every hour for today. Up at the top left, there's those color codes. I did see someone ask about any idea about identifying certain areas if you're colorblind. That is something that I can take back to our team to figure out a workaround or the best way to support you in that. But this is going to show you visually. If I go to a week or a month view, I'm going to see things that are incomplete are this orange color, and then things that have that completed check-in and check-out would be in green. So if you're reviewing your time before you send it over to TELUS, you definitely want to focus on these that are that orange color. That's something where you didn't check out. And maybe you left yourself a comment. You could use that data to enter that time. But from here, if you knew what your out time was, you could use this edit button to come in and say what time it was that you checked out on the 7th. Let me use my clock here. All right. Remember we were talking about those exception codes? Since EVV data should be captured in real time, what was the reason why I didn't check out? So this has allowed me to update that. You'll see that corrected time is there. And it does keep a record of those exceptions. This also shows on your reports and things as well. All right, we did have a couple of questions come up. Will the trainings in December be recorded, or is that more of an interactive training? We would love for you to attend a live one just so you can participate and ask questions, but we will record the trainings and have recorded trainings available for review. And another question, can you switch back and forth between the tablet and the phone? Yes, it does not matter where you're checking in from. You're going to log in with that same information. I should clarify, it doesn't matter which device you're checking in from. It will use your same login information despite if you're switching into devices, it'll pull up your same schedule and you can check in and out in between devices. So how will it look if a provider goes over their hourly or daily, monthly authorization? So you're going to be able to check in and check out for those visits. However, on the authorization, you're only authorized for a certain amount of units. So if you've gone over that, you won't be paid for that overage. And I don't know if you want to clarify or make any other statements about that, Katie.
No, I think what you said is correct. You won't be able to be paid for the overage until it's corrected. So I would recommend that before you send your information to TELUS that you get that corrected on the therapy side first.
Peggy, good point. She said, doesn't having the ability to check yourself out later defeat the purpose of having the app? So you would want to be using the mobile app because that's what's getting you that EVV data. So if I go back in and look at one of these completed check-ins, you'll notice here that the data from the mobile app is going to show the location. Or here's my fixed verification device that I used. So this is the most accurate data for your EVV is to come from the mobile application. When you do a manual entry, you're not really giving that EVV data. That's why you have to give that exception. So eventually, after the state starts reviewing this check-in and check-out time, there's going to be a comparison for how many exceptions you have, because the intention is for this to be collected in real time, not to be manually entered after the fact. So this process that I'm showing you now is really just to make sure that everything's finished and correct before you send it over to TELUS. All right. I'm going to go switch back to my phone. So what I'm hearing, if I check out and it runs over my approved time, I have to go back in and edit. So I'll try to clarify to make sure that we're speaking to everyone's questions that come up. I'm going to go back in and do another self check-in on my device so you can see what that looks like again. There we go. All right, so logged back into the mobile app. I'm going to go to my scheduling EVV section. There's that visit that I already checked in for that I'm waiting for my offline to catch up. So I'm just going to do a brand new self check-in. And when you go in for the first time, it may actually look like this. This is that nothing was scheduled in advance. So if you are not scheduling anything ahead of time, your screen will be blank until you do your first check-in. So I'm going to use that self check-in button. It pulls my date and time directly from my connection. I need to define which person I'm supporting. So I'm touching that individual line, and it's going to show me all the people I have on my caseload. So I need to choose which person, which program, and which service. So this screen where you're selecting the service, this is where you can see the days, the number of units already provided for the day and the week, and mine both say 0. So I haven't provided any services for Charles yet today or this week. So this is the information required on this screen. It automatically defaults to billable, yes, and we want to keep it that way so that when we send it to TELUS, it will create a claim. I'm going to touch the next button, and I'm going to use mobile. This is when it's pulling my location, and I'm going to touch that check mark to check in. Now, if you did schedule something in advance and you had a start and an end time that were recorded, maybe you said you were going to provide this service from 4 to 5, it will still let you check in and out outside of that time. It's going to be looking at your actual check-in and out time for what's billable. It's not going to compare that to your scheduled start and end time. So there was a question that came through about that. How do you account for the difference between the times? Let me go back and pull it up so I get it right. The question was, if the guardians of my person do not return at the planned time, how is the difference from the scheduled time and the actual time accounted for? So what electronic visit verification is going to be looking at is your check-in and check-out time. So it's not going to be sending that data, the scheduled data, to tell us it's only that check-in and check-out time. Is the check-in and check-out address auto-filled by GPS information? So if you saw where I was checking in here, that it pulled that data directly from my device. So you have GPS in your device, and it is using internet connection, cell service, and the GPS satellites to locate you. So the more connectivity you have, the more accurate that location may be. GPS is not 100% accurate, and you cannot change it when you're checking in. So if there is a concern that you have about that location that's displaying, I would recommend using that comment section so that you can have a note about that. During the visit, does it show if we take the client out of the home and we check out at the end of the visit in the home? So this brings up a really good question. Thanks for asking that. Your location is only captured at the point of check-in and check-out. So you do not have to worry about documenting your location if you're going out into the community and going shopping or completing an errand with the individual. It's really more about where you are when you start that service and complete that service. So there is no location tracking throughout your visit. All right, I did want to go back to the questions that we had early on about how to get to the TheraP app. So I'm on an Android device, and I'm going to go to the Play Store, which I just so happen to have on my screen. I could also go here to where all my apps are, and I'm looking for Play Store. It has this kind of multicolored arrow shape. This is what it looks like on Android. On an Apple device, you're going to go to the App Store and you would just search for their app. This is what that app icon will look like, our orange background with that blue text. And then mine says open because I already have it. Yours would say download or install. So that's how you would install that TheraP mobile app. And then once you have it on your device, that's when it would prompt you. Let me show you what that looks like. It would prompt you here on this login screen to put in your information. All right, a couple of questions have come through. This is back to the question about going over the approved time. For example, I am authorized 15 hours for respite care that goes over the 15 hours based on checkout time. Do I need to manually change the checkout time so it does not exceed the 15 hours? No. So we would want you to only touch that EVV data, only edit that EVV data if there's something missing or something that needed to be modified. Maybe you checked out late and forgot about it and you needed to change it back. So if you are going over, I believe that will stop from the state side with the authorization if you're using more units than what you're authorized for. And as we get closer to this implementation, I know it feels like a really tight deadline. We're starting the training in December 7th is our first training, and we're going to do that all the way up until the holidays. You know, we're going to have continued training after that to make sure you're comfortable using the system, and when you have to do that submission, to tell us. So we will continue to support you as we get that available in your accounts. All right. Someone said the App Store shows TheraP Business, same app as TheraP Services LLC. It should look exactly like this, Mary Jo. So I'm not sure if you're on an Android or an iOS device, but you're looking for that orange icon with the blue text. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my computer and go through a couple more questions. We had another question from someone who joined a little later, asking about the fixed verification device. So I will go ahead and repeat that just so that everyone remembers or is aware. The state is working on an application, and they will be making that available to people who are interested in obtaining a fixed verification device. So if that's something that you are personally interested in getting, that fixed device, you would need to get in touch with dhhs.dd provider relations at nebraska.gov, and they will communicate with you about that. They will plan to send an email with that information as well. But if you go ahead and let them know that you're interested, that gives them an idea of how many people are going to be looking for those. With that fixed verification device, it is meant to stay in the location of service delivery. It's going to be set up by the service coordinator, and it would be approved by the state for you to use that. Could you explain why we need the TELUS training? So you are going to submit your EVV data from TheraApp to TELUS, and in TELUS is where you're creating the claims. So you need to be familiar with that TELUS piece so that you can complete your billing process. Mary Jo, if that app looks the same in the App Store, and it says TheraApp Business, I'm going to look on my side as well on my personal phone. I think it's okay if it looks like that orange. I'm going to do a search in the App Store. Yep, it says TheraApp Business in the App Store, and that is the correct one. Now, sometimes when we do updates to TheraApp, you may get a notice that you need to update that mobile app, so it'll prompt you to do that to make sure that you're on the most current version. You all have had some really good questions. I appreciate you participating. We have a little bit of time left if there are other questions that you have or things that you would like me to revisit. This again is just sort of your general overview when we meet together with these webinars that are coming in December. Then we'll go through this in more detail in your account and make sure that you're comfortable.
So we have more questions that were a little bit above where we stopped. So we had one. So basically, this app takes the place of the provider record of services sheet. Peggy, I think that you are talking about not DD services, but A&D services. And in that case, yes, it does. But this is the wrong training for you if you are an A&D service provider. And then we have another question. If I'm only using a fixed device at the person's home, do I need to go onto TheraApp to schedule the visit beforehand?
No, you do not have to schedule ahead of time if you're using fixed verification, but you will need to be sure that you keep a record of those codes that you get for check-in and check-out, and you'll need to enter those later, either from a smartphone or a computer. There's that fixed visit device and the code that's going to be generated for you.
And then we have another question. Would you recommend that we use the TheraApp app over the TELUS app? So Mary Jo, the TheraApp app is going to be what you'll use for your check-ins and check-outs. You will not use the TELUS app, but you will have to use the TELUS website. So you don't need the TELUS app for your smartphone. You'll only need to access the website. And then we got another one. Can I check out at an unusual location? I am often with the client for much longer than I can turn in for on my own time.
Can I check out in an unusual location? So there's not going to be any stops there's not going to be anything that restricts you from checking out. What you might want to do is explain in the comment, there's a checkout comment or just a general comment that you can use, so that if there's any question about what you were doing and where you were, sometimes you may be dropping someone off somewhere else than where you picked them up. So it's not going to prevent you from doing that, and you could use your comment to give more detail. Will the app sync with the laptop? Yes. So as soon as you do a check-in on the mobile app, it's going to show up on the web browser as well. So you should be doing your data collection from the mobile app. And then when you get ready to submit that data to TELUS, if there was maybe a missed checkout time, you could go in and enter that from the computer. What are the specification requirements for the iPhone and the Android? 1 second. I think I have a slide on that.
I believe it's 5.0 for the Android and 10.0 for the iPhone.
Thank you. No, I think that's correct. Yeah, I believe that's correct, but I can verify that as well. Any other questions? I really appreciate you all being interactive and asking questions during these sessions. These are for you, so we want to make sure that you're getting what you need out of this. Remember, we do have those trainings, those independent provider setup and training webinars that are coming up all in the month of December. So please make plans to attend one of those. We'll also have recorded resources that you can watch and step-by-step instructions for you. If you have any specific questions for the TheraP team, you can use nesupport@therapservices.net. And remember, if you're interested in that fixed visit verification device, you can use this dhhs.dd providerrelations@nebraska.gov.
Looks like we have a couple more. Can I ask a question regarding scheduling respite care? Absolutely, April. Go ahead and ask that. Is the attendance at the webinars tracked? So your attendance at these webinars, if you attend, you're put on the attendance list, but we don't really keep track of who attended what webinars or anything unless somebody asks for that information. Where can I find this recording later? This recording will be posted on the DHHS DD Therapy EVV webpage. Okay, April asked her question, what is the proper way to schedule respite? I know that it's daily billing, but if I happen to do other care and respite, I have to split times up. So if you're doing several EVV services in one day, you would want to schedule those by each service. But if you are doing respite part of the day and a different non-EVV service, also you would only schedule the times that you are providing the respite and then check in and check out each time you provide that service. So for example, if you provide respite from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then from 10 p.m. to midnight, you would check in at 6 a.m., check out at 8 a.m. and then check back in at 10 p.m. and then check out at midnight. I hope that answered your question.
Yep, and you don't have to schedule that in advance unless you are going to be using an offline version. So you could just do that self check-in that I showed when you begin that respite service and end that respite service. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left if there's any other questions.
Looks like we got another one. A continued example on the respite. So yesterday I had respite only last minute from 6:30 p.m. till this morning. How should I put that in? If you were going to just check in, you would just check in when you start and check out when you are done. If you were to schedule that, I believe, Stephanie, you might have to answer that, whether they have to stop at midnight and start again, or if they can put schedules over to the next day.
So that's a great question. You can schedule overnight and you can check in and check out overnight. So when you do a self check-in at 6:30, then you would just check out the next morning when you've completed that service. And it would allow you to span that 2 shifts. For billing, it's going to split it across that date where the date changes, but it will allow you to check in and check out across overnight shifts.
We got another question. Respite is not paid on overnights, correct? Patty, I'm not sure if exactly what you're asking. There is respite hours can be used overnight for DD services. Yes, for sleep time, respite for DD, for sleep time, respite can be used, yes. Got another question. Can you start and stop at the same time when changing services?
So yes, it's going to allow you to check in. So if I'm finishing my service now at 3:57, I'm checking out now and it just changed to 3:58, but if it still said 3:57, I could still check in for my next service. What you will get an error about is if you are checked in right now and I try to check out within the same minute, it won't let me. You have to have at least a minute difference between your visit if you're trying to check out really quickly. But if you're changing services, it will allow you to check in without having any issues with that time. Great questions, everyone. All right, this is our last call. And Katie, can you confirm that for Patty?
So Patty, if you're providing a DD service for respite, so that would be, let me get my code sheet out. That would be provider code 8148 or 9042. Then overnights are allowed, but that would be something you would have to talk to the service coordinator about to assure that that is what they want you to provide. If you're not providing 8148 or 9042, then your respite service is not a DD service, and you'll need to talk to your the service coordinator that you're working with the waiver you're working under.
All right, well, we are wrapping up here for November's Independent Provider EVV webinar. This will be recorded and posted later. Remember, you can get in touch with the TheraP team at nesupport@therapservices.net. You can get in touch with Katie and her team at Nebraska, dhhs.dd providerrelations@nebraska.gov. We hope to see you all soon and talk to you in those December trainings that are coming up. And we look forward to getting everybody checking in and checking out for January 1st. Thank you everyone for your time. Talk to you soon.